So we are going to start a new series on the book of Hebrews. Okay? And the reason why it's called the book of Hebrews is because, anyone want to take a guess?
They were talking to the Hebrews.
Talking to the Hebrews? Or maybe God's a big coffee fan, he brews. It's a new coffee shop.
Did you get enough sleep last night?
It's a good coffee shop name, right? You could put Hebrews, just put a little space between the E and the B.
What the guys have to do, the girls don't have to.
Good question. Who wrote Hebrews? It is.
Well, it's a language.
Yeah. So it's the essence of it. We don't know who the author is.
Right.
It's the one book in the Old Testament that we don't definitively know. Okay, there's speculation as far as who wrote it, but the typical conversation as far as who wrote the book of Hebrews will either be number one option is the Apostle Paul. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying like generally people say it's probably Paul, but and they'll say it's like 75% of the type of the stylistic writing is very similar to Paul's writing. So there's a comparison. But we know the way Paul starts. How does Paul start? I, Paul, blah, blah, blah. Right? You know it. Like, I think there's a familiarity when it comes to you writing. When someone gets to know you very when you send, I think when you develop a text thread with people, they know they know who's saying what, right? Like, oh, this guy would say it like this. But it's a speculation. Another major option would be either, and it's funny because we talked about them last week, is Barnabas or Apollos. Okay, Barnabas, the guy that Paul went on his first outbound mission with. It's a possibility that he wrote it. Or Apollos, and Apollos is the guy we studied from Acts chapter 18, the Jew from Alexandria, most likely influenced by Philo of Alexandria, the philosopher. And the reason why we think it's possible is because of the technicality of the writing and the content that's in the book of Hebrews. Okay? But again, we don't know for sure. Okay? There's been some early church fathers who have suggested Apollos. There are certain early church fathers that have suggested Barnabas. Right? But at the end of the day, it's from when you read the book of Hebrews in and of itself, there's no author that's mentioned, so we don't know. Okay? But the early church accepted it, and most likely the person was associated with the apostles. Okay, so think of Jesus, the 12 apostles that we studied, and there's those associated with the apostles, right? So technically speaking, the apostle Paul was not one of the 12. He was associated with the apostles, and that was good enough for the early church to accept an author of the New Testament. So because we don't know, the assumption is the person was associated with the 12. Okay? And the name gives it away. All right? So not Hebrews, right, for coffee, but essentially Hebrew. Hebrews. The Hebrew people. The reason why it's called Hebrews is because it's written to the Hebrew people. Okay, now let's make a distinction here. You don't really hear that name in the New Testament. Paul mentioned like Hebrew of Hebrews, right, in Philippians 3. But the name Hebrew kind of got trickled away in the New Testament, and even till today, you don't hear the word Hebrew. Instead, what's the term we use today? Jew, right? That guy's a Jew.
Jewish Christians.
Jewish Christian, right? Now, the reason for that, okay, is a Hebrew is descended from Abraham. An Israelite is descended from Jacob. Okay? A Jew is descended from Judah. You see that? So that by the time New Testament came along for a century, to be a Jew was technically to be from the tribe of Judah or the southern tribe. So by the first century, it was only the Judah, right? It was only the Benjamites, and it was only the Levites. So technically, those were considered, they got lumped into what you call a Jew. If you want to get technical, then someone from the tribe of Dan, someone from the tribe of Reuben, those aren't Jews, they're Hebrews. You see that? But that distinction cannot be made in the New Testament, nor today, is because we don't know who is from the tribe of Reuben or Dan. Because of 722, the Assyrian takeover, and then the 10 tribes just got amalgamated with Samaria. Okay? So, but essentially, this is written to the Jewish Christians at the time, which is why they call it Hebrews. Dan?
You said Hebrews from where again? I know Jews from Judea.
So I'm being, this is very technical, like, etymological, like etymology is a study of words, like how do you get a word, right? So essentially, if you're a Hebrew, it means to cross the river, but essentially it's from those descended from Abraham.
Okay.
And if you're an Israelite, then you're descended from Israel, right? And then if you're a Jew, then you're descended from Judah. So it kind of, we all lump all of them together, but I'm being very specific as far as no, this is technically where it comes from. Yeah. Okay.
Well, like the intro for Hebrews is interesting because it kind of goes into like Old Testament theology, but then what's interesting about 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, he says, I, Paul, write this greeting with my own hand. This is the sign of genuineness in every letter of mine. It is the way I write.
Yeah.
So it's like, he says it in Thessalonians, but it's like a sign of genuineness. It's like, I wonder, it's like, I don't think he would have like left out his name in Hebrews if he was like the author.
Yeah.
But he also wrote about the supremacy of Christ in Colossians. So it's like,
well, that's why. So the argument for Paul is that 70% of the content and the style of Hebrews is similar to Paul. The parts like if the first sentence of this book changed and it said I, Paul, we would be like, all right, Paul wrote it. But that 30% is not there, right? And the way you start and the way you end matters as far as your writing, right? Danny?
Didn't it change too? Some of the apostles or some of the the Gospels, didn't they change the way they wrote from the beginning to the end?
In what way?
Well, they became, different people, number one. John at
Peter,
the beginning, John to the end, a man of love, and, he was a fisherman, and he was a tough guy, and he mellowed out. And isn't it true that Paul did that too? So it kind of changed through the years of them writing, I was told.
Yeah, that's a good point. But the thing is with Paul is because, remember, we studied his 3 missionary journeys. We kind of have beginning, middle, and end with Paul. And they're all the same. You know?
Okay.
You know what I mean? And Paul, from the get-go, was like a scholar, and like he did his inner transformation work at the beginning when he didn't even write. Remember, he went to Arabia for 3 years, and so again, we do have his writings collectively throughout his 3 missionary journeys, but it doesn't deviate from. You know what I mean? They're very consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, but I see what you mean. Like we change, our mind changes, our skill changes.
Right.
But that's a good point. But I don't. Anyone else questions? No. All right. So most likely it was written before 70 A.D. And the reason why I say 70 A.D. is because that's the destruction of the temple. Right, that Jesus prophesied, Jesus predicted. He says, not one of these stones will be left. Right, so the reason why we say it was most likely written before 70 A.D. because it talks about animal sacrifice in the present tense. Right, and that means that you were able to sacrifice animals before. So most likely it's around 60-ish A.D. it was written. Okay.
Okay.
So again, we have an unknown author writing to Hebrew Christians, okay? before the destruction of the temple. Okay, now let's read verses 1 to 4. Can someone read out loud? Hebrews 1 verses 1 to 4.
The supremacy of God's Son. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature, and he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become as much superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs.
All right. So look at verse 1, okay? Long ago. It's like a Star Wars. Long, long ago. Some Disney. Once upon a time.
That was cool.
In the past.
In
not
the-
galaxies far away.
Long ago in Neverland.
That was cool, though. That was really cool. The first Star Wars, how they had it coming down like that. There was a lot of new stuff in Star Wars. It really, really was. I'll shut up.
Definitely the long, long ago.
Yeah.
At many times, okay, and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. Okay, so many times and in many ways, okay, God spoke, but through people. Okay, when you say many times, first of all, God speaks. Okay, God speaks. Obviously, the manner is different due to the fall. I think it would have been a lot more personal. Like, I don't think we would have the Bible. I don't think we, you know what I mean? Like, if there was no fall, there's no, all this is not necessary, right? But what God speaks, but that line of communication from us as humans to God, there's a line of communication that happens many times. Okay, many times it's happened. He said, okay, not one moment, but throughout. Okay, many times, and in many ways it says. Okay, how do you think in the Old Testament, right? Long ago, right? We're going back to the Old Testament. How do you think God spoke?
Through the prophets.
To the prophets. Did he? You ever? I might go off topic. We're going to talk about this later on, but like when it comes to Christianity in America, okay, you'll have different types of Christians, right? We're talking about Catholicism and like Lent, and right. Do we do that? Do we not do that? Right? But then you have like, you go even deeper, and you have like Baptists, right? Presbyterians, where it's like God spoke to me. How? I read John chapter 3 today, right? Right? But then you talk to like a charismatic, someone that's Pentecostal. The Lord said this, and you're like, how do you know that? And it's like, well, I heard him, or he's in my, right? I'm always, I got saved in the charismatic church, but I'm always curious, like, how do you know? Like, how come I don't hear him like that? like 1 Samuel, remember the prophet Samuel, the way he heard from God, right? The way he heard from God, he was a little boy. It's for Samuel 3, and all of a sudden he's a boy and he hears his name being spoken. He's like, "Who is that?" Right? And they go to sleep, Sam. When he hears a voice again, he's like, "Who's that?" Right? And the priest at the time was like, "Oh my, God is speaking to this child," right? So I'm curious, like, how, does God speak to people? Right? Anyways, we'll go there later. But God spoke in the Old Testament long ago, audibly, right? You would hear words. Okay, remember Jesus? This is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased. Everyone heard it, right? There's an audible voice. How else did God speak to people?
It says, for he gave his only begotten son.
Yeah.
Wasn't that God also declaring that?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't not believe that. I mean, that's pretty blunt.
Yeah.
In dreams.
Dreams. Okay, so dreams. So Joseph. Joseph would be one. Joseph and Daniel would be a candidate as far as God clearly speaking to his people through dreams and interpreting dreams, and not just dreams from them, but dreams from the kings.
In Hebrew?
What's that?
What language?
Mostly it was in Hebrew.
God.
Yeah. Mostly, if God was speaking to those in the Old Testament, it was in English, right? It was most likely in Hebrew language or Aramaic. So Aramaic was like, it's a dialect of Hebrew, so it's the dialect, it's the language that Jesus spoke. Yeah, and and a part of the book of Daniel is written in Aramaic too. Yeah, so dreams, an audible voice, visions, right?
Prophets.
I would say the book of Ezekiel, right? Would you say, as far as visions, and back to Daniel too? I think Daniel saw visions, and a vision is a dream while you're awake. We made that distinction when we went through Daniel, right? There's a dream, there's a vision. Both you're seeing things. One you're asleep, one you're awake. That's the only distinction, right? Is that if you're seeing a vision while you're awake, if you're seeing an image while you're awake, that's a vision. If you're seeing an image while you're asleep, that's a dream. Okay, Danny?
Wasn't there? Didn't the donkey talk to somebody?
Oh, that was good. I had that here. I said, well, what's next? Balaam, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's the book of Numbers.
There you
So
go.
God spoke through a donkey, and the donkey, kind of like in Shrek, was opening its mouth like, "Hey, what you doing? Stop hitting me!" Yep. Yeah. So God spoke through a donkey. It's in Numbers 22 if you want to look that up. Numbers 22. Yeah. So again, we have dreams, we have visions, we have an audible voice, we have animals, right?
Weather.
Is that Michael?
Yeah.
Angels. Through angels.
Speaking through angels, and we added a software, guys, where old church members come back, and it's Michael Johnson's here.
Long time no see.
I know. Good to see you.
You guys remember Michael Johnson?
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Danny, Kevin, remember Jenny?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Doing good.
I'm in Napa, California.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been a while. We're looking at Hebrews 1.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Hebrews chapter 1.
Did he speak through the weather? Or is that just like that went before his voice went?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe as a sign, I could see that,
Okay.
but as like it rained. That's the Lord saying. You know what I mean? Like I could. Yeah, I don't from top of my head.
But Jesus, when he walked on caused a storm, and Jesus calmed the storm.
Like the 10 plagues. Like that's the weather, and it was God showing judgment. So it's you know what I mean. It's still God, but again, like a clear message.
Right.
A clear message. But what we have is what many times this happened, right? And then in many, and the reason why in many times is because it wasn't consistent. Okay, so I believe that God would come, go, and as far as his level of communication with people. You see that? So after the book of Malachi, you have a 400-year gap, right? The book of Malachi to the New Testament. So what I'm saying is, like, did God speak then? Right? Did God speak? Another time, for instance, there's a passage in 1 Samuel 3:1. And the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. You see that? So again,
Yeah.
the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. 1 Samuel 3:1. So that's the passage where he hears the voice of Samuel. Right? So Samuel hears the voice. But the point is that there at certain times there would be like he's speaking to Moses like instantaneously. There'd be another times that there would be no audible voice, no visions. You see? So I'm open to it today is what I'm trying to say too. But yeah, Danny?
Was it Enoch and Elijah? Wasn't it? Was it Jesus that said, well, what happened to Elijah? He said, well, he came, but they didn't accept him.
Say that again. Say it again.
Okay, it was a prophet that came. Somebody was talking to Jesus, I believe, and he says he came back, but they didn't recognize him. Wasn't that
Luke 24? Luke
right,
24.
right.
Yeah.
Do you know? Can you expound on that?
First of all, it's an imagery of Joseph too. Like in Joseph, like he's standing in front of his biological brothers, right? And he's looking at them, they're looking at him. He knows who they are, but they don't know who he is.
Right.
And obviously the same thing happens to Jesus in Luke 24. Remember, we weren't as clear cut. Imagery was not as clear cut. There was no photos. Now we know facial recognition. Back in the day, our Roman centurions, if they have to arrest someone, they had to ask, "Who's Paul of Tarsus?" Paul of Tarsus could have been sitting right there. It's just there's no clear cut drawing of him. So what I'm saying is identification was a lot harder. You see what I'm saying?
Makes sense.
So whether Jesus had scruffy facial hair or he was, I don't know. What I'm saying is like you have to consider that too. Is that the level of recognition wasn't as clear cut. Okay, but remember this though. God spoke in the Old Testament through his prophets. That's the point in verse 1. He spoke through the prophets. Okay, but the thing is when he spoke through the prophets, it was true, it was authoritative, but it was partial. It was there was anticipation that had to happen. Right? There's prophecies, but they're looking forward to something in the future. Okay? And this is there's a discussion today as far as God speaking. There's people like John MacArthur, and they're known as cessationists. It's a view within Christianity that believes that God today does not speak. God today does not. The miraculous gifts are not for today.
Right.
There are other people who are continuous. They're charismatic, like the Pentecostal church, the charismatic church. Or the church is going to come here. They're going to start speaking a different. That they're implying that the supernatural gifts have continued, right? And there's people like this is a position I hold. I'm open but cautious. Is a position. You're open but cautious, meaning you're open to the gifts, right? But you're very cautious when you hear it. So when someone says the Lord said this or God, I had a word from God, I'm not saying it's not true, but when I hear it, I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to I want to hear it, right? Is because there's a lot of manipulation that happens. People have been taken advantage of it. In Africa, there's a term, it's called Brother Bob. Has anyone heard Brother Bob before? Brother
No.
Bob is where some gentleman in a church will approach a female and be like, the Lord told me that you are my wife. Okay? And if the Lord said so and the woman denies, what happens? Right? I'm going against the will of God, even though I don't like this guy. You see, but you see how people, it's
You should have just said, well, he didn't tell me.
yeah, exactly open but cautious, right? Is you have
Well,
to
it's using the Lord's name in vain.
it is using the Lord's name in vain. Yeah. So remember, using God's name in vain is justifying an evil act in the name of God. So terrorism, that's using the Lord's name in vain. No one calls it out like that, but it is. When Muslims say Allah Akbar and they blow themselves up and 20 other people die, you're using God's name in vain. Allah is just God for Arabic. You're saying God. You know what I mean? But again, that's yeah. So that's
They're not taught that though, are they? They're not taught that.
What's that?
When they say Allah Akbar, then they blow themselves up. They're not taught that they're using God's name in vain.
No, not at all. Not at
They're
all.
talking. They're taught that they're going to paradise or whatever.
Correct.
Right.
I actually heard that definition from Dennis Prager at Pepperdine years ago. You guys know Dennis Prager?
Yeah.
He's a quadriplegic now, right? He's just
Uh-uh.
he's quadriplegic. He fell in his bathtub. and he can't move. Yeah, so he's been gone for a year. Yeah, he's just in a vegetated state. Yeah, like Johnny Erickson. Yeah,
How did he get to be that way?
he fell in his bathtub.
Oh,
Yeah, he slipped, fell, and
spine, yeah.
yeah. So,
The-
go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say the other way. God speak. The way he spoke to everyone is through the law.
Yes. That's the word, right? The Torah. Okay, but let's go to verse 2. And in these days he has spoken to us what? By his son. Okay? So back then God spoke through the prophets. Today or now, what does it say? But in these last days he has spoken to us by his son. Notice how it says the last days. This is 60 AD, right? It was almost 2,000 years ago. Why is it saying the last days?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Right? So the last days is anything post the resurrection of Jesus. So when someone says, "Oh, we're living in the end times, we're living in the last times," it's like, I know, but we were living in the end times 2,000 years ago, right? And the reason I'm making that distinction is when we hear we're living in the end times, it's, oh, did you see that bomb that blew up? Oh, did you see that disease? Right? It's like natural disasters. It's objective evil in the world, or wars, or all the evil that you see on the news. People say we're living in the end times, the last days. When in reality, biblically, this is Acts 3, right? After Pentecost, he quotes the book of Joel and he says, "In the last days," right? Similar to Hebrews 1:2, in the last days. So the last days is anywhere after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. There's nothing that needs to happen. There's no sense of prophetic or any other word or new biblical revelation that needs to happen. We have enough. Right? We have enough. Okay? But he has spoken to us, what? Through his son. Okay? There's no greater revelation coming. Now, from verse 2, the second part, to 4, it says, whom he appointed, what? Heir of all things, through whom he is the creator of the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God, the exact imprint of his nature, and he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high, having become as much superior to the angels as the name he has inherited a more excellent than theirs. So here, just from verse 2 and 3, we're given 7 Christological claims that he is God. Okay? So the big portion of this book, this entire book, okay? We just read the thesis of this entire book. That's verse 1 to 4. And that is that Christ is superior. Christ is better. Jesus is better. Okay? To the things that the Jewish Christians, the Hebrews at the time, thought they were valuable. It's not that they're not valuable. It's just that Jesus is more valuable. Jesus is better than what they had upheld in their society at the time. What they upheld as valuable is obviously different from what we do. Technological advances, 2,000 years later, different context, right? So the first he says is what? He is the heir. Okay? Whom he appointed what? Heir of all things. Okay? What is an heir? An heir.
Inheritance.
Somebody's going to inherit something.
Yeah. Someone that's going to eventually inherit something. Okay? But what did the son inherit? All things. All things. Okay? And this happened after his resurrection. And essentially, angels don't experience that. Okay? Jesus is the heir of all things. Okay? And then it says, through whom what? He created the world. It says in the second in the last part of verse 2. So he's the ultimate, he's the agent of creation. Okay? Now, the thing is with this part right here, where he says he created the world, is that if we can have two verses read, can someone read John 1 verse 3, and then another person read Colossians 1:16? John 1:3, Colossians 1:16.
It says, through him all things were made, without him nothing was made that has been made. That's John.
John 1:3, okay. Colossians 1:16. Colossians 1:16.
For by him all things were created in heaven and earth, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him.
Okay. So all things were created for him and through him. Okay. So we have John 1:3, we have Colossians 1:16, and we have Hebrews 1, where it says he created the world, right? Jesus. Okay. Now watch this passage. Isaiah 44:24 says, I am the Lord who made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens, who spread out the earth by myself. Okay? Isaiah 44:23. Only God has created all things, it says. And then you have these three passages in the New Testament that say Jesus created it. Okay?
He
Danny?
gave Jesus.
Isn't the word God plural God? When it says God, it's a plural God.
don't
When
know,
they
yeah.
use God, it's not a singular God.
Uh-huh.
It means many, correct?
Depending on the word, Adonai or Yahweh. Yeah.
Right.
Bonnie? Did you have a question?
No, I was just saying I thought that God gave Jesus the power
Yeah.
to do what he wanted to do.
Okay. Jesus always had the power. It's just when he became a man, he willfully gave up his power.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. So it's a big distinction, because if God gave him power, that implies he's not God, right? And this is the essence of Hebrews 1, is showing the distinction that him versus the angels. So we're going to go into the angels, because this is the ultimate. This is something that the Jews upheld at the time. Angels, they valued angels. We do too, but not as much, right? Maybe on not Valentine's, Christmas, or you know what I mean, like certain holidays. You'll hear about angels, but essentially, like again, Jesus always had power, always had ultimate power. It's just when he became a man, he temporarily gave it up. So this is Philippians 2, where it says he gave up, right? So remember where Jesus was on earth, there were certain times he was very limited. And his power, the reason why he could do miracles, is because he was empowered by the Holy Spirit. And this is all in Luke's gospel. It says, and then the Holy Spirit. And then the Holy Spirit, right? So Jesus, again, he was a man. So when someone touched him and says, who touched me? He really meant, who touched me? I'm a man, I don't know. Right? But with his power, obviously he would know. It's just at the time, prior to the resurrection. Okay, Joanne?
Was Jesus already with God up in heaven, I guess? And then all that time, and then he came down to earth as
Yes.
a baby?
Yes.
And
Yes.
he was already up there
He was
first.
already, yes.
And
yeah.
then he...
So it's a fascinating study, very fascinating. We could spend a whole Thursday doing this, but it's the angel of the Lord. Not an angel, the angel of the Lord.
You know, I used to think angels were women. They were men.
Oh yeah. Well, they're real transgender. Yeah, the angels are actually transgender.
Like Michael.
Yeah, like they have no gender, right? Yeah, and there's no male, female. It's in the masculine, but again, this is humans trying to put our sex, male and female, our biological, onto like spiritual beings. It's our attempt, but they're not. It's not. There's no male. There's no female. Angels, right? Yeah.
Well, they can't look what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. You
Right.
know,
Right.
So they couldn't have looked that bad, I
Yeah.
don't think.
Well,
Right?
it's that's how bad it was apparently. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like when Jesus was tempted in the desert for that period of time by Satan,
Mhm.
So he was basically tempted like we would be, like in terms
Yes.
of the flesh.
100%.
He just resisted in the spirit.
Yeah, so Jesus' life, Jesus' earthly life just shows that it's possible. The struggles all of us go through, anxiety, lust, finances, lack of sleep, whatever. He went through the exact same thing. Like, name me a sin, I guarantee you we're able to like, this is how Jesus did it, right? Like, obviously there's new things. Like, how did Jesus deal with like doom scrolling? All right, obviously, right? It's different, but like my point is like, yeah, like you can break it down. All the worst things that happen to people, he went through, and he dealt with it. He dealt with it. Yeah, he was an actual human being. He was and he still is. Currently, Jesus. So 1 Timothy 2:5 says, Paul says, the man Jesus Christ, and it's in the present tense, which means he's constantly a man. He's forever a man. Yeah. So, yeah. It's a sacrifice, right? It's a sacrifice. Yeah.
But he has a spiritual body, though. I mean, during the transfiguration, I mean, he came in the spirit, correct? Where he was bright and he looked different.
Yeah, we're going to go into that next.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm asking, I'm not telling.
But again, the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament is where, here. God coming down through a burning bush. Spoke through the, right? It says that's the angel of the Lord. So when God, remember Jesus, when he says in John 8, before Abraham was, I am. Or Abraham longed for this day. Remember what Abraham in Genesis 22, where he's about to sacrifice his son? And all of a sudden, what? An angel of the Lord stopped him. The angel of the Lord. So it could be argued that Jesus was speaking to Abraham in Genesis 22. It wasn't the biological Jesus, but it was his spirit. It was the same soul, right? Just in the angel of the Lord. And then you have Joshua. Remember where he says, take the sandals off your feet for it's holy ground, right? Before he was about to walk around Jericho 7 times. Remember, same thing, right? Again, you have this character come in and out, and it was always God, 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 God. And people say that's Jesus. It's a pre-incarnate Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. And then it says, he is the radiance of the glory of God. The radiance of the glory of God. Essentially, he is. Think of it this way. When it says he is the actual radiance, he is the actual beam. Okay. Remember Moses? Remember Moses when he was speaking to God? In Exodus 34, what happened to Moses after he left the mountain?
His face covered his face, Shekinah glory.
So Moses' face was shining because he was with God, who was shining. You see that? So when you see Moses had a divine suntan. Essentially, like he was in front of the sun. It's like, whoa, what happened to your face? Right? It's the same concept, but it happens through being in front of the sun. Moses was able to glow because he was. Jesus is the glow. You see that? Jesus is the sun. So you go back to the transfiguration, right? Is that Jesus lit up. And Moses was there, Elijah was there, but again, it's the same concept, right? So Moses is not the glory, right? Elijah is not the glory. They don't light up. They light up because they were with something that lit them up, right? Jesus is what is the glory. Okay.
Excuse me. The who was it? Peter, James, and John didn't realize that, though. Correct? They thought that they're just kind of hanging out together. They didn't realize at that time how special Jesus really was with Elijah and Moses there.
Yeah,
right?
It was definitely. He writes about it in 2 Peter, about that moment. He doesn't say the transfiguration, but if you read the description, it's like he's talking. Peter, he writes about the transfiguration.
Yeah.
He's like, there was this one moment, right? It's like if you climbed Mount Everest, or you're at the top of what is it called, the Rouge Dubai, that big building in Dubai. Like you talk about those experiences, right? Very similar. That Matthew 17 was a very big moment for Peter, James, and John.
Right. Well, in John too, isn't it? Yeah, it's in 3rd chapter of John, isn't it?
What's that?
The Transfiguration.
It's not in John's Gospel.
It's not in John.
No,
okay.
Not, no.
Could you still
But John was there.
John was there, yeah.
Do you feel like an inner glow is still practical today? Like you have a conversation with somebody, and you go, "Oh man, that person, you can tell they're submitted to Christ."
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they're just glowing. Is that
so? The modern term that we use is energy.
Yeah.
Oh man, this guy has good energy. They have bad energy, right? But energy, what they mean is a vibe. You know what I mean? Like when you're around someone, you can, and you're always around them, you can sense their heart.
Yeah.
High, low, right? And if someone's at a high with God, you feel it. I think you feel it. Ramin. right. Ramin's a friend of ours, like way back, that like from Iran, that literally like turned his life around, and he's got like millions of followers.
You would have coffee with him, and he's like sharing his faith with everyone.
I went to Starbucks with him like just once, and he was evangelized to everyone in the line, and we didn't even talk. You meet with someone for coffee, we couldn't even like sit down and have like, because he was talking, and they're all like thinking he's weird, but like, and he's not trying to show off.
It's not fake. It's not fake. It's real.
This was like 2013.
Yeah.
This was a long time ago too. But he's living in Israel. Like, oh man, like he's unbelievable. But he's someone that you can. There's a glow. I think I've sent you a video on him when we did the Islamic series. I was going to interview him. Remember I said I have a friend I want to interview. That's Ramin. Yeah, but it says so he is the exact imprint of his nature. It says. Okay, the exact imprint of his nature. This is in reference to like a signet ring or a coin, right? So, but obviously, if you're a Roman, you would know what this is talking about. In order to get a signature, you'd have a signet ring, and then you would stamp it on the wax, right? And you close the lid. It's the exact same, right? So, Jesus is the exact same imprint. Okay, the same stamp, the exact same seal as the Father. And then it says, and upholds the universe by his word. Okay, he's the holder of the universe. And then it says, after making purification of sins. So this is in reference to the priestly nature of Christ. And it says, he sat down at the right hand of majesty. Okay, so this is obviously after the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus sat down at the right hand of God the Father, and this is something that his work is complete. Okay? So again, we have these 7 different characteristics of the nature of Christ being God. Every single thing that we talked about is a nature of God. Only God possesses these things. Okay? Now, so he is supreme. He is better. Okay, Jesus. And then look at verse 4. Having become as much superior to angels, as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. And this is the point of chapter 1. Now, obviously, we're probably not going to finish of chapter 1 today, but the whole point of it is that Jesus is better than the angels. Okay? Jesus is better than the angels. So the reason why the author of Hebrews is talking about angels, okay, and he's now saying, well, you don't really hear that today. It's like you don't need to hear an argument that Jesus is better than... Now, you would have to hear an argument like Jesus is better than Donald Trump. Right? Jesus is better than your smartphone. Jesus is better than the Democratic Party or the GOP or whatever... AI or, whatever human value that you have today, you would have to make an argument that Jesus is better.
Well, if Jesus is God's son, he would do better than pretty much anybody except God, right?
Well, that's the thing is he is God, right? It's when we say father and son, it's the same concept like as far as us talking to angels, like it's a male, it's not a literal father, it's not a literal son. It's more descriptive as far as relationship between the two.
But the part that says that God gave his only begotten son.
Yeah, so begotten, like what when you hear the word begotten, what do you
Does that mean that he had the child? Or was
you
the father of the child?
Of him.
yeah, think of it like this. When you hear begotten, it's coming from you, but it is you. It's coming from you, but it is you at the same time. So there's no distinction. So for instance, think of a river dam, right? You have and all of a sudden you get rid of the dam, the water comes out.
Yeah.
You see? Now the water that has left the river it's the same thing, right? There's no distinction, but there is. There is, but there isn't. It's the same water, but that water came from the river. That's what it's like. It's begotten. It came from it, but it's still connected. If that makes sense. Yeah. So he's the only one. But so we can go more into the Trinity maybe next week, like as far as like breaking it down. Like so, the first 1,000 years of church history, if you didn't know, was all about this. It was all about the nature of wait, Jesus this, the Holy Spirit this, like the first ecumenical council was the Church of Nicaea. It was the Council of Nicaea in 325. So remember, you were studying history. You know the disciples. It was all persecution. So remember Paul going his 3 missionary journeys. Remember Thomas. We study the 12 apostles and apostles after, and it's clear that there was they went out after Jesus resurrected, right? But under Roman law, it was illegal to be a Christian. The reason why there was a little breathing room in the book of just a little breathing room is because Christianity was under the umbrella of Judaism, because Judaism was the only religion that was exempt from bowing the knee to Caesar because they were considered a historic religion. Christianity came out of Judaism, and because they came out of Judaism, they were underneath that umbrella. Later on, they were kicked out of the umbrella. Oh no, we're getting wet, right? And then this is where there was persecution. This is why in the book of Revelation, that's why it's rampant at that point. You see? So they were like, no, they're not part of us. The Jews were, they're not part of us, right? And that's why in the book of Revelation, it's like they couldn't buy, you couldn't sell, right? This is what the temptation was in the book of Hebrews. This is what the temptation was in the book of Revelations, is that they thought of giving up their faith for the sake of good livability, right? Just to buy food, just to not run away, etc. Okay?
Do you think, like, looking at this, Americans, we can have a distorted view on how we see Hebrews? Like, yeah, Jesus is number one, but now he's supposed to do all these things in our life.
Oh, yes.
He's like,
yes, yeah. There's a lot of distortion,
like mythical, like things that come out of.
And this is let's just be honest. This is why it's called the deconstruction movement. The deconstruction movement, and they're more for younger people, is around 2020, and the whole COVID thing happened. Around maybe I'd say it's really Donald Trump. In 2016, like there was this like nasty disdain towards evangelical Christians because Trump put it right. They put him in office, and then there was this hatred that a lot of the people that didn't vote for Trump in around 2016-17 that they was built up. By the time 2020 came, it was like the deconstruction movement already came. What that is that there are those who are Christian or evangelical that are now picking and choosing what they believe and what they don't believe. So they're like, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I think a guy can marry another guy. I think a girl can marry. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's very open.
They're trying to merge the progressive mindset with Christianity, but that happened because of people were hurt. Right? But that's what happens is that when you don't study history and connect the dots, you have your own religion. Yeah. So my point is that after the persecution, it kept going and going and going and going until the year 313 was Emperor Constantine, and he said, you know what? don't kill the Christians. Just you can allow them to live. It's called the Edict of Milan in 313. From 313, because it was just legal, it spread. And by the time it was 325, the church had their first ecumenical council. So it's like Acts 50, the Jerusalem Council. They had another one in 325, and that was all about this. All about the divinity of Jesus, because there was this monk by the name of Arius of Alexander that St. Nicholas, the guy we call Santa Claus, punched in the face. Yeah, or one of his or a friend or a disciple of Arius. But Arius was teaching that Jesus was not God. Right? He was teaching that Jesus was not God. And then this is where the council was, and it refuted that concept. And it was all about this, begotten. It was all about the concept of that. Arius was saying he was not begotten. And then the church said he was begotten, meaning that he is distinct. He came from the Father, but he carries the same essence. So the water that flows from the river is distinct, but the same. You see? Yeah. So that it was all about that. And then for 1,000 years, literally almost a millennium, for 700 more years after 325, it was always something different. There's always something different. Okay? Any question, Danny?
Yeah, didn't, oh boy, I should know my dates better. But they killed, getting away from the Church of England. They didn't want, they burnt Christians, Protestants at the stake for going against Catholicism sometimes, going against the Church of England. And that was after that, was it not?
Yeah.
I mean, that happened quite a bit.
When you go to the Protestant Reformation, that's like 16th century.
Right.
Way later.
Right.
Yeah.
But they were, killing them for going against politically, or the Church of England, or politically the Roman Catholic Church. They were still killing them.
So this is why there was, and again, Catholics might this is a lot of it is practical too. I know there's a lot of theology like tulip and Reformed theology and all that stuff, but a lot of it was more practical. And when I say practical is that look at that corruption, right? So the Great Schism, where the church separated from the East and the West, 1054, the Western Church, Roman Catholic Church today, it became very politicized, very political. Look what happened after 1054. The Crusades happened. 1095. You had Pope Urban II, that he brought the knights together, and then you have the Knights Templar, and you have the First Crusade. So it was in 1095, it was called the Council of Clermont, where he gathered all the people together and declared, essentially, like, if you kill an infidel, if you kill a Muslim, then you'll be given rewards. And that's because Jerusalem was Islamicized at the time. But this is my point: is that it became very political at the time. So you study Roman Catholic history after 1054. It was very political. The Pope had a golden 3-tier crown on his head. He was telling the monarch of France, England, Spain what to do, and they pledged allegiance to him. You know what I mean? So like you had the monarchs, the most powerful people in the world, listen to the Pope, right? Yeah. And a lot of it was political, right? So that's why. So if you're wondering, the Church of England, Anglican Church, here you guys call it Episcopalian. I say you guys, Canada is from England at the time, and it's called the Anglican Church, but that's all King Henry VIII, right? Around the Protestant Reformation, he broke off with the Catholic Church because he wanted a male heir. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? He had 5 different wives, and he'd cut their head off if it didn't work out. Yeah, literally. Right?
But that's what he read the Church of England, correct?
Yeah, it was all he just wanted a male heir.
Because of him, yeah. Because of him.
Yeah.
It's like Pelosi. The cardinal wouldn't give her communion, so Pelosi doesn't give up. She went directly to the Pope, and the Pope liked her. Yeah. Said, "Of course you can have communion." Yeah. Go ahead.
King Henry wanted his marriage to be annulled, right? So he was married to Queen Elizabeth, and then she was 40 at the time, and they had a daughter. She was only able to give him a daughter, and he's like, she's 40 years old. He's not going to give me any more kids. So he went to the Pope asking to annul the marriage, to marry someone younger, to have a male heir, to male child. The Pope said, nope, can't do that, right? And then obviously there was tension because Spain was the superpower at the time, and then because the wife was essentially from the monarch of Spain, given, right? And then he divorced her, and then he became the Pope essentially, and married Anne Boleyn. And then Anne Boleyn, his second wife, never gave him a kid, cut her head off. Yeah, it's brutal, very brutal. Yeah.
How old was she when he did that?
Probably in her 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then then you have Queen Elizabeth, right? That's like people. That's the essence of American. Like when I say American, is us, like America, North and South America, not USA. I'm talking about the Americas. It's like the race. So the real race of North, and you can even look at the map and be like, oh, that's why it is. The very essence of the Americas, was a race between Spain, who was Catholic, and England, who was Protestant under Queen Elizabeth at the time, to spread Protestantism versus Catholicism, right? So look at today. So this is California, right? Why is it called Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, San Diego, San Clemente?
Because of the Spaniards.
It was Europe.
Oh.
Was it, right? They were the Spanish were just conquering, colonizing, right? And you go to San Juan Capistrano. The first mission was in November 1st, 1776. The Spaniards were there, but that's where they established the missions, right? And then England wanted to. They said, "Oh no, Catholicism is spreading," right? And they said, "We need to send boats to America to spread Protestant Christianity." It was a guy by the name of Jonathan Hay Clute that wrote a book all about this. And Queen Elizabeth saw it. He says, "Let's go." And the kicker, I know I'm going like so detailed to history here, was there was a siege war between there was a war between the two of them, England and Spain, under King Philip, and it was all about the ships, the naval ships. And Spain and Portugal were just on top of the world when it came to it, right? Going to Christopher Columbus, right? And then what happened was that Spain lost because there was a storm, kind of like today. And as a result, England won, and Queen Elizabeth, with the remainder of the boats, sent them to the Americas. And then, lo and behold, you have Jamestown and Virginia, right? Yeah, it's crazy. It's a race between Protestantism and Catholicism is why we're here. And if you just look at America, like North, it's English-speaking, Spanish-speaking, Protestant, Catholic. That's why.
Not according to Ocasio-Cortez. She says it was the white guys that kicked all the Mexicans out. She doesn't know anything about Cortez, and her last name's Cortez.
I know, like the irony.
She skipped the Spaniards coming over here and murdering and killing the Aztecs and the Mayas and everything else. It's all the white people that Spain had nothing to do with it. It's like, woman, you're better off just shutting your mouth, man.
So the guy,
especially when your last name is Cortez.
So his point. So AOC, Cortez, the guy that led the Spanish expedition to like pretty much Mexico City, which was called Tenochtitlan at the time. His name was King Montezuma II, which was the king, and they pretty much conquered them. But the guy that led it was named Hernan Cortez. Hernan Cortez, AOC Cortez. So it's pretty funny. But now the reason why we'll have to continue next week. The reason why there was an emphasis and why they're comparing them to angels. Why angels? You guys ever like who's obsessed with angels here? No. Exactly. That's my point. Like who? How about this? Who's obsessed with looking at their smartphone? All of us. Yes. Let's just be honest, right? And it's a modern day thing, maybe issue, maybe just practice that we do, but angels are not an issue for us. Angels were an issue for the audience of the Hebrews. And the reason why is because, remember, if you're a Jew, you upheld the what? The Torah, the law. Okay, wait. Now, who gave humanity Moses the law?
Who gave Moses the law?
Yeah, who gave Moses the law?
God himself.
God, okay. Through
Through Christ, probably. Through Christ.
Can someone
Let's
read
read it.
Galatians 3:19? Can someone read Galatians 3:19? And then can someone read Acts 7:53? If someone wants to
Acts
read
what?
Acts 7:53, and someone get Galatians 3:19, and if someone wants to read Deuteronomy 33:2. So three.
Acts 7, okay,
Acts
53.
7:53.
You deliberately disobey God's laws, even though you received it from the hands of angels. Huh?
Ooh.
Okay.
The law of God through the hands of angels. Okay.
Okay. I
Galatians
stand corrected.
Galatians 3:19 wants that, and then Deuteronomy 33:2 wants that.
Galatians what?
3:19.
It says,
I got it.
I got it.
Why then was the law given? It was given alongside the promise to show people their sins. But the law was designed to last only until the coming of the child who was promised. God gave his law through angels and Moses, who was the mentor between God and the people.
Okay. Give his law.
Or black and white.
Through angels. Okay. One more. Deuteronomy 33:2. Some Old Testament to back it up.
And he said, the Lord came from Sinai and dawned on them from Seir.
Mm-hmm.
He shone forth from Mount Paran, and he came from the midst of 10,000 holy ones. At his right hand there were flashing lightning for them. Keep going.
Yeah, that's fine. From the holy ones, though. You see that?
Yeah.
So I all three of those passages specify coming down, and we think it's like, magically God giving it to them. No, it says three times. Angels gave the law to Moses. Angels gave the law to Moses, right? We just think of, Moses was getting his divine tan going on, and it's like, man, God, thanks, right? But it says no, angels. Okay, now because of that, angels were just generally, they were elevated, almost too high. Okay, and we're going to have to continue this next week about angels and their role. But essentially, it was the Jews or the Hebrews at the time were elevating angels, right? Almost to the point that some of them would have perceived that Jesus was a glorified angel. Okay, if you did not know, Jehovah's Witnesses, you guys that walk around, you knock on the door, and you go to Irvine Spectrum Mall, one of these malls, and they have the different languages or tracks. It says jw.org, right? They believe that Jesus is Archangel Michael. Yeah, that he's not God; he's Archangel Michael. So, our translation, their translation is called the New World Translation. It says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was a small g God.
Really?
A God. And essentially, what they teach is that Jesus was Archangel Michael. So from the book of Daniel, right, the book of Revelation, that's Jesus. Okay, so the point here is that no, Jesus is not Archangel Michael. Jesus is not an angel. Jesus is better and above the angels. That's the point. The reason why is because the audience at the time, they upheld angels, right? And just think of the imagery. Angels gave Moses what? The law, right? And then Jesus gives us, right, the gospel. That's complete, right? Danny?
Didn't it say in Scripture that the body of Christ at the end will be judging the angels?
Yeah. 1 Corinthians, yeah. That we would be judging angels. No one knows what that means, right? But it shows you what that shows you is our status.
Right.
Even
Right.
though we can't win in a fight, let's be honest. Or you put an angel, like one angel in like the Old Testament kills like hundreds of thousands of people, right? It doesn't mean that the status of an angel compared to a human is lesser or greater. You see that? So it's like a lion or a Siberian tiger. There's no way we can win a fight against a Siberian tiger. But it doesn't mean it's better than us. It doesn't mean that God has more favor than a Siberian tiger. Right? Same thing with an angel. Okay.
Was it Deuteronomy what?
33:2.
Oh, 33.
33:2. Okay.
Well, the thing is like, they didn't have smartphones back then, so the, Angels was kind of like the, data center back then. But like, the reason why Jesus is better is because it's like he put on the word became flesh and dwelled among us. Like he became us, and it's like he can he was tempted yet without sin. Like he's totally he totally knows what it's like, and we can relate to him. And he had human blood, a human heart, and it was his own blood that sacrificed. So it's like, why would anyone want a substandard intermediary, And there's only one mediator between God and man, Jesus Christ. But it's like, why would you want anything related to? Why would you want an angel? It's like, no, because it's like Jesus is superior. He's preeminent. It's like, it's a no-brainer once you know it's like what he actually did. It's like, it's the wow factor is just like, oh my gosh, like how much Jesus gave, like, it's amazing.
Well, he said, I am, too. I mean, he also said, I am.
Yep.
This day you're failing seeing the prophecy fulfilled. He said, I am. I mean, he said the same thing as the burning bush. I mean, it doesn't get any higher than that, right?
Yeah. It says, before Abraham was what? Ego and me, I am. In the next verse, and they picked up stones to kill him.
Right.
You pick up stones for what? Blasphemy.
Sure.
Blasphemy. And that's he was claiming to be God without
Sure.
saying it. Say with, there's that famous young people say it, tell me you're this without saying you're this. Right? Tell me you like the Dodgers without telling me you like the Dodgers, and the person has all the Dodger gear on. Right? It's you're saying something without verbally saying something. So tell me you're God without telling me you're God. It's like, all right, woman, walk, right? It's he'll do something only God could do without saying it. Because if he were to say it in the first century, there's a lot of Muslims that, and they'll say, they'll have all these like objections ready. It's, remember, if Jesus were to say, yeah, I'm God, worship me, they would confuse him with the Father. And the divine revelation of like the Father, Son, Spirit was progressing around this time. So I think we're going to stop here, guys. And then we're going to continue with chapter 1 and chapter 2 next week all on angels. Okay?